발표 주제는 일관되고 지속 가능한 HSE 리ኳ이어먼트를 글로벌 수준의 레벨로 개발하는 방법 또 프로세스에 대해서 이제 얘기를 해주실 텐데요. 많은 부분이 이제 아무래도 싱가포르이다 보니까 글로벌 옵쇼어 기업들이 좀 많습니다. 그래서 옵쇼어 쪽 케이스들이 좀 많이 나오는데 사실 이 케이스들은 뭐 온쇼어 쪽이나 오늘 오신 많은 다른 인더스트리 쪽에도 적용 방법은 동일하니까 그렇게 이해해 주시면 될 것 같고요. 저희가 되도록이면 한 세션은 이제 영어로 좀 외국에서 강사를 모셔서 진행을 하는데 하다 보면 아무래도 이게 영어다 보니까 중간에 이렇게 좀 서머리를 해드리는 게 낫더라고요. 그래서 제가 중간에 챕터 끝날 때마다 간단하게 주요 내용만 좀 서머리를 해드리도록 하겠습니다. 그리고 발표 자료가 조금 업데이트 되셨더라고요. 어제 저녁에 마지막 걸 주셨는데 그래서 조금 가지고 계신 자료랑 다를 수는 있지만 최종본으로 요청하시면 QR코드 통해서 요청하시면 그거는 송부 드리도록 하겠습니다. 네, 그러면 강사분인 자이날 씨를 모시도록 하겠습니다. 오케이, 자이날, you can start. I emphasize the most important thing is go slow. Okay. 최대한 천천히 말씀해달라고 부탁했으니까요.
Good morning, everyone. I am told to speak slowly. I speak very fast. So if I go too fast, raise your hand, slow down. Okay? No. Good morning. I talk about a bit myself, my background. Actually, I started out in the maritime business as a surveyor quite a while ago, 30 years ago. I started in '94. And about 2-3 years later, because of my girlfriend, now my wife, she said I travel too much. I went to the oil and gas business. I spent a lot of time in ExxonMobil in Jurong Island, and ExxonMobil is different from a lot of companies. They do not believe in ISO. They believe in self-monitoring. So they developed their own management system called OIMS. So I spent a lot of my time conducting audits. So from onshore to offshore chemical plants. Actually, I started in the construction of a chemical plant in Jurong Island in Singapore. And then I started to do a lot of other stuff, refineries, offshore platform, other chemical plants, plastics manufacturing, butyl rubbers and stuff like that. And after a while, I joined DNV, about going to be 13 years now. And I've been running I'm the counterpart of RM in Southeast Asia, and I've been doing that since 2017 as the head of section. My background, mostly I do is audits and accident investigation, a lot of accident investigation. All right, so today I'm going to talk about management systems. All of you are HSE professionals. So for you, this is a bit of a recap. What is management system? All right, but I'm doing it a little bit differently to look at the perspective of how a management system can support in improving the operations of an organization. I'm also touching upon what Dr. Lim mentioned earlier about ISRS, because there's a tool that DNV uses. So that's what we use to support our customers who are not using ISRS, but to identify issues in their management systems. And after every chapter, I will stop. I will give time for RM to give a bit more explanation in summary of every chapter. So these are the things I'll be talking about today. Now, some of the stuff is
Let me summarize here.
Yeah.
원래는 시작을 마리타임 쪽에서 시작을 하셨고요. 지금 30년 정도 이제 근무가 되셨는데 이제 온쇼어 쪽으로 좀 바꾸고 오일앤가스 쪽으로 바꾸시게 된 이유가 여자친구가 마리타임에서 일할 때 너무 지금 와이프가 되신 분인데 너무 출장이 많다. 그래서 바꾸셨다고 하는데 지금 오히려 더 출장이 많으신 것 같습니다. 엑소모빌에 근무를 많이 하셨고요. 그리고 DNV에 오신 지는 13년 정도 되셨고 많은 오일앤가스 그런 컴퍼니들 그리고 많은 그 외에 그런 인더스트리에 지금 서비스를 진행하고 계신데 코어 그 서비스 영역은 본인은 사고조사 라고 이제 말씀을 하셨고요. 오늘 말씀해 주실 주제는 HSE 매니지먼트 시스템이 얼마나 중요한가라는 부분인데 사실 오늘 오신 분들이 대부분 다 HSE 쪽에서 오신 분들이기 때문에 어떤 내용은 리캡하는 반복적인 그런 다시 한번 상기시키는 중요성을 상기시키는 내용이 되겠지만 여러 케이스들을 통해서 얼마나 이것들이 실제 중요한지를 다시 더 얘기해 보자 합니다. Alright?
Thank you. Now, I'm going to deep dive into the management system, all right? And management systems are very important in the oil and gas business. Actually, it's important in all businesses, all right? It is the groundwork where you help your organization operate safely. It's not just a tool for safety. It's not a safety guy's tool. It's a tool for everybody to use, all right? And what I show you on screen is basically what we use in DNV. And it's no different than the management system that you use. Even if you do not follow ISRS, all right? It's the same processes, the same elements. We've added twist to make it a bit more understandable and a better approach. But ultimately, what does a self-sustaining management system do? It is a structured approach to manage your operations safely. All right? It needs to be in a PDCA cycle. All right? We've heard Dr. Lim talk about earlier. All right? It's the same thing. And it evaluates, mitigates hazards. Talking about risk. Forces organization towards a proactive culture instead of reactive. Don't wait for something to go wrong before you do something. Assume something will go wrong and have the controls in place. All right? It makes your operations more reliable. Less downtime. Less downtime means what? More money. More money means we have job. Even the safety guys, yeah? And everybody else. Now, in the oil and gas business and the chemical industry, whether it's offshore and onshore, all right, if you look at an example, an offshore drilling rig, where even a simple matter can become a very major consequence, all right? And it's based on 8 specific principles. And you can apply this across all industries. I will keep repeating this myself, all right? First thing is essentially identifying risk. You have your risk management process. We have risk evaluation, risk control, risk monitoring. It's the same thing, but placed in a different manner. But ultimately, identify potential hazards before it happens. Then put the controls in place. Controls, you say controls, I say barriers, is the same thing, all right? The other aspect, regulatory compliance. You do it because you have to. It's the law. And coming up, you have new regulations to manage this, all right? Existing and ongoing. But it makes sure you follow at least a minimum standard to make sure that people are working safely. They leave home to go to work and they come back home in one piece. Healthy and safe, all right? And that's the reason for the compliance. The other is, if something does go wrong, what do you do? How do you make sure it doesn't happen again? How you make sure history does not repeat itself? Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, you will doom to repeat your mistakes over and over again. All right? Number 4, PDCA, continuous improvement, regular audits, right? In making sure that people are aware that this is coming and to increase the mental capacity of people to do the right thing when nobody's looking, because you're being audited most of the time. Right? Getting people to be involved, making them understand what they do, what is the safety, what is the issues behind the work that they do, all right? And when they take responsible for their work, they have more pride in their work. So better morale, better improvement in practices, all right? If you do everything for them, they don't want to do it for you. But if you make them do it for themselves, they are better engaged. This is what I've seen over the last 30 years doing this kind of work. Emergency response. When things go wrong, how to manage. it is often forgotten that when something does go wrong, if you have a good emergency response plan, good training towards drills, actions to take, that you can reduce the consequence of every major issues that happen after an emergency. You have a fire, you can lose a facility, you can build a facility, but you cannot replace lives, right? So if your people are adequately trained, you have a very good emergency response plan in place, and not just plan in place, but communicated, understood, implemented, regular drills, the likelihood of your loss is reduced tremendously. And I've seen it in actual incidents, right? In actual drills. There was a case where LNG storage facility in Singapore, huge company. They want to know, do my managers, do my supervisors are able to respond correctly in terms of emergency? Yes, we can find out. We use the ISRS process to determine whether they have a process in place. Then what we did is that at 5 o'clock in the morning, we conducted a drill. The CEO was there. We make him do the call. And he called his operations manager. There's a leak, I was informed. This is a drill, do the necessary. Then we'll see, follow the motions. And we saw some people can do, some people cannot, which is good. Those who can do, we reinforce. Those who cannot, extra training. It's just like example of when you have cybersecurity drills that you have, where your IT support sends the false email, phishing email. Those click, what happens to those guys who click? Extra training is the same thing, but it reinforces good behavior. Next is environmental protection. A lot of times this is not forgotten, it's not thought about enough. But it's part of HSE, the E, right? Promotes, because if you do well for the environment, you do well for yourself. Right? There's basic thought process behind that. And lastly, cost. I will put cost and making money as last. We are all safety guys, huh? Safety first. Nobody says safety second, yeah? Right? So it's the same thing. But ultimately, everything that you do in management systems is actually to reduce the cost. Less downtime, less addiction, accidents, you make more money. I remember the iceberg theory. The cost is on top, very little. But below is huge. Insurance, uninsured costs, accident cost is the same thing. Right? And this is reflected here.
Okay, my turn. 네. 그 SMS에 대해서 개략적인 설명을 해주셨는데요. 처음에 보여주셨던 장표는 ISR에서 얘기하고 있는 15개 엘리멘트로 구성된 장표를 일단 보여주셨어요. 그래서 이게 리더십부터 시작해서 Result and Review라는 항목까지 돼 있는데, 사실 많은 지금 오신 여러 회사들에서 쓰시는 그 SMS의 그런 구성과 크게 다르지는 않을 겁니다. 그래서 궁극적인 목적은 What can go wrong? 그래서 어떤 것들이 잘못될 수 있는지를 찾아내고 그걸 PDCA 절차를 통해서 하는 것들은 인더스트리가 지금 다르시다고 하더라도 크게 다르지 않을 것 같고요. 그래서 SMS에서 크게 8가지 가장 중요한 좀 항목들을 아까 첫 시간에 이제 임 박사님도 여러 가지 구성으로 설명해 주셨는데 또 다른 관점에서 설명을 해 주셨습니다. 그래서 첫 번째는 해저드 아이덴티피케이션이고요. 두 번째는 레귤레이션에 이제 그 부합하는지 여부를 이제 어떤 디스크립션 하기 위해서 그런 목적으로 사용되는 부분, 그리고 사고 조사와 레슨 런, 그리고 컨티뉴어스 임프루브먼트를 위한 그런 PDCA 과정들을 얘기해 주셨습니다. 다섯 번째로 궁극적으로 이런 SMS를 효과적으로 이제 그 운영하는 목적은 모든 직원의 자발적인 참여, 활발한 참여를 이끌어내기 위함이라는 말씀도 주셨고요. 그리고 비상대응, 여섯 번째 비상대응 관련해서는 실제로 비상대응을 실제 사례를 통해서 잘 수행하게 되면 효과적으로 사고 역량 결과를 좀 줄일 수 있다라는 말씀도 해주셨습니다. 그래서 실제 본인이 그 좀 보신 좀 그 인상 깊었던 사례도 말씀해 주셨고요. 이 비상대응과 관련해서는 사이버 시큐리티도 마찬가지의 그 경우가 해당할 수 있는데, 그래서 피싱 메일 이렇게 테스트로 보내서 하시는 회사들 많으실 거예요. 저희 회사도 굉장히 여러 번 하고 있거든요. 그래서 그런 것들도 이제 비상대응 훈련과 그 맥락을 같이 하고 있다라고 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 그리고 뭐 environment protection, 그래서 환경 보호라는 목적이 사실 이 SMS에 같이 녹아져 있는 큰 그런 가치다라는 말씀도 해주셨고요. 결과적으로 이 모든 것들을 통해서 조직은 코스트의 효율성을 가장 높이기 위해 이런 것들을 운영하고 있다라고 말씀해 주셨습니다. 오케이.
Now, in the oil and gas sector, again, I'm going to reiterate, it's any sector to that matter, right? The management system makes a very important role, as I said before. And giving some examples, if you look at it, for instance, in risk assessment, in other organizations, they will have one element for risk assessment called risk management procedure. In ISRS, we have 3. Because of the PDCA cycle, it's easy also to implement. But it's still the same thing, all right? Identifying proactively. First, you evaluate. You have your hazard, your HAZOP, identify your risk. You have task-based risk assessment, things like that, right? Then, based on those assessments, you put in controls, barriers. Whether it's procedure, you follow the hierarchy of hazard control, right? Eliminate the risk, substitute engineering controls, then administrative control and PPE, same thing, all right? After you do that, what do? All is done? No, you monitor, right? You do audits, you do your permit to work audits, audit of the activities, you check the records, you are the safety guys, you are the one going down, become the policeman, yes? Right? But you do that. Why? You need to monitor. Are the controls that we put in place working? Does it make sense? Oh, the controls actually is wrong. We need to review it. Right? PDCA cycle, go back again. Another example is that under accountability, who's in charge? Who's responsible? Right? You need to plan what you need to do for the year. Do we have enough money? Do we have enough resources? Whether it's safety or individuals on the floor. Right? You plan, then you communicate. And a lot of times, organizations, when it comes to communicate, they start at communication, email, safety stand down, and then done. You need to do more. The rule of thumb when it comes to communication is that you tell someone something, you need to make sure they understand what you tell them, what you teach them. So you need to question back, tests, quizzes, contests, whatever it is. But important is that when you have something new, you communicate, you make sure the communication is given correctly using the right platform, whether it's email, training, town hall meetings, right? And then you confirm that they understand. Once you know they understand, then communication is complete. It's important to make sure understanding is put across. And a lot of times, we or other organizations miss that. When I first started in this business, I thought I tell them email, okay. Not so okay, right? So you need to have more. You need to acknowledge. Another important aspect of, core aspect of management system is training, all right? Risk assessment, incident investigation, related training, how to respond, this is all inside your management systems. It tells you clearly what to do, how, when, all right? In some of the trainings, I like to use this, 3 wives, 1 husband. I'm Muslim, I have 4 wives. Right? Who does what, when, and how often? Easy to remember. Eh? Only discount 3 lah, not 4. But it's the same thing. You make sure that who does what, when do they need to do it, how often they need to do it. Right? And these are the aspects. And I'll give you a good example. All right? This is a project that has personally been involved in, and is still continually being involved. So IHI is a Japanese company. They manufacture a lot of things. They do a lot of different things. They started a shipbuilding business, of course, like most companies, right? But they diversified. Now they are in the aircraft industry, chemical, manufacturing, power generation. And this particular group is power generation, all right? What happened is that their R&D division, they are going into low carbon fuels, ammonia as fuel for energy, for power generation. So they designed new gas turbine that runs on ammonia. Ammonia is dangerous, highly toxic, all right? But it's clean, right? So they have management systems in place for normal kind of fuel, normal operations. All right, they do know it's dangerous, but they don't have enough controls in place to manage this. So they hired some people for the R&D side who are ex-Shell, and they say, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that. Contact DNV. So that's where I came into place. All right. So first part, what we did was that we provided a solution at 2 steps. One from the software aspects. So they designed these things, so they need to know, if I have a leak of ammonia, how big is the leak? How far will it go? How much is the concentration? So our digital solutions business sold them the DNV fast and safety product, and for 2D and 3D. So they know this. Okay, if it happens, what do I do to control? So we look into their management system. We audit using the PSM aspect of ISRS. They don't have ISRS in place, but we use ISRS as a tool to identify the shortfalls. All right, and they have HSE, but no PSM. And PSM is very important when you handle hazardous chemicals, hazardous material, process safety. It's a key part of managing what you call hazardous material. And when we did that, they saw a lot of shortfalls, right? Especially in terms of training, emergency response, understanding the risk related to ammonia and the release of ammonia. And on top of that, understanding what is the impact on other activities. Because they are doing this in a lab. The lab has other labs. It's a big lab. It's in the industrial lab in Yokohama. All right. But there are other activities. Their neighbors don't know ammonia is next door. And then they were using LNG on top of that for a previous design. So now you have 2 different hazards, a flammable and a toxic plus flammable. So we identify all the risks here using the ISRS process, but we delivered this to them. And then the next step, oh, we don't know this, we don't know that. So we provide training, right? From the management down to the guys on the ground. And they were scaling up because at that time when we did the audit, it's a small engine, can fit maybe this side. But this engine eventually is going to generate power for a city. So they're going to make it bigger, higher megawatt, right? So they moved to another facility in southern Japan, which is much bigger, which a higher volume of ammonia is going to be used. This particular facility has a small tank, maybe 5 tons. The new one has 50,000 tons. It's a lot of ammonia, right? So we provide the training at step phases. And the next step, which is coming down, is to update the management system. Based on the findings on the training, you have 2 options as organizations. You can pay us to do it for you, or you can do it yourself. To do it yourself, you need to know. So the option we gave them is actually they want to know. So we train them, let them do it. Let them update, and we'll come in and we review. Big picture is that in terms of cost, it's better for them, but time is very long. It's not very fast. But they're willing to take that. Why? Because I get to train my people. We manage it ourselves. And DNV comes in to audit, advise, provide the additional input, and you go ahead. This is a very long-term thinking of an organization. Actually, it's pretty smart. So that's what we did. All right. And now I am going to Japan next month to provide continuation of this. All right. So the additional is about advisory because they're increasing in size and more volume. So this is one very good example of focusing the SMS, updating the SMS, all right? Using, in this case, using ISRS as a tool, but supporting the organization in actual test case.
Okay. 네, 지금 2번째 세션에서 얘기하고 있는 거는 저희 주제가 이제 글로벌 수준의 HS 리퀘어먼트를 만들어가는 과정을 말씀드린다고 말씀드렸었는데 특히나 오일앤가스 섹터에서 가장 중요하게 보는 3가지를 먼저 말씀해 주셨습니다. 그래서 가장 중요한 게 위험성 평가, 그래서 해저드 아이덴티피케이션 앤 모니터링 파트가 가장 중요하다고 말씀해 주셨고 그리고 어카운터빌리티, 레스폰시빌리티라는 용어를 쓰시는데 이건 아까 전 세션에서도 말씀해 주셨어요. 그래서 어카운터빌리티는 누가 이 터스크를 수행해야 되는지, 레스폰시블은 해당 터스크의 최종적인 책임과 어떤 승인 권한은 누구에게 있는지를 이제 정확히 명시를 하는 거죠. 그리고 세 번째가 이제 트레이닝이라고 이제 말씀을 하면서 시작을 했습니다. 그래서 일본의 IHI라는 회사의 케이스에 대해서 설명을 해주셨는데요. 이 회사는 여러 분야의 사업을 하고 있지만 최근에는 특히나 파워 제너레이션 파트에 이제 그 중점을 두고 있는 회사고, 그래서 기존 LNG로만 파워 제너레이션을 하다가 암모니아 가스 터빈을 개발하고 있는 회사입니다. 암모니아는 아시는 것처럼 깨끗하지만 톡식이 굉장히 이슈가 되고 있는 그런 케미컬이고요. 그래서 이 IHI도 SMS를 이제 운영하고 있었지만 암모니아라는 새로운 그런 종류의 케미컬을 대량으로 취급하는 그 설비를 이제 곧 운영할 거기 때문에 우리 SMS가 그 암모니아를 취급하기에 적절한지 또는 놓치는 부분은 없는지를 파악하기 위해서 이제 좀 의뢰를 해주신 것 같고요. 그래서 총 4가지 단계로 수행을 했는데요. 첫 번째는 위험성 평가를 했습니다. 위험성 평가를 하는데 문제는 암모니아가 얼마나 위험한지를 시뮬레이션을 통해서 좀 정확히 알아야 되는데 시뮬레이터가 없었어요. 그래서 다행히 그 시뮬레이션 할 수 있는 툴들을 또 DNV가 가지고 있어서 패스나 사페티라는 그런 시뮬레이션을 저희가 제공을 해서 정확한 위험의 반경이라든지 위험성이라든지 이런 거를 파악하는 단계를 먼저 진행을 했고요. 두 번째는 IHI가 SMS를 기본적으로 가지고 있었기 때문에 어떤 글로벌 수준과 비교해서 어떤 점이 지금 취약한지를 파악하기 위해서 기존의 PSM은 안 하고 있었다고 합니다. 그래서 PSM이랑 IS를 통해서 굉장히 빠른 시간 내에 수준 파악을 좀 했다고 합니다. 그리고 세 번째로는 가장 좀 긴급하게 필요하다고 생각되는 부분에 대해서 트레이닝을 전반적으로 진행을 했고요. 그래서 매니지먼트부터 엔지니어 단계의 전 직원에 대해서 트레이닝을 진행을 했고, 이 위험성 평가를 개선한 점, 그다음에 수준 파악을 하고 관련된 중요한 핵심 사항들에 대해서 트레이닝을 진행한 이 전반적인 과정을 마지막 단계에서 SMS 시스템에 업데이트를 다시 시켜서 좀 더 보강하는 그런 절차가 진행됐다고 합니다. 그래서 이런 과정들을 쭉 보면 이런 절차는 조직이 스스로 하기는 좀 어렵다고 보여지는 그런 부분들이 있고요. 지금 미스터 자이날 씨는 다음 주에도 일본에 가서 지금 이 프로젝트를 계속 지속적으로 좀 진행하는 중에 있다고 합니다. 오케이.
Thank you. Now, I mentioned about risk assessment, hazard identification. All right, and it is important. Why? I'll give you an example here. These are the numbers of incidents, just oil and gas business. Yeah, we don't talk about everything else. Just offshore oil and gas from 1964 until 2019. So it's approximately 50 years, right? And you can see how many incidents we're talking about up to 2015. Macondo, Deepwater Horizon. Mark Wahlberg, he's also one of the lists over here, right? Why? Because the issue is that they have hazard identification done, but it's not effective enough. There are holes left here and there, and it's because of the management system being deficit. Sometimes almost all organizations will have management system. In this day and age, it's there. Why? ISO 45000, yes. If you're certified, you will have management system. For 45,000, the problem is the ISO standard is all in. Either you pass or you fail. It doesn't tell you how good, how bad you are. What can you do to improve? All right? Now, and that's what's missing. So with ISRS, we take one step further. You're good, but how good are you? Things like that. So going through what you call management system, reviewing the management system, tells you the whole big picture of all the various kind of risk that's being identified in the organization. And typically these are the ones, right? Physical risk, ergonomic, biological, chemical, psychosocial. And most organizations will cover the physical, the biological, and the chemical. It's standard. What's missing is actually the psychosocial and the ergonomic. A lot of organizations, a lot of tools that organizations you have already provided for your people, they are forced to follow. That's what ergonomics is. We design the workplace that force an individual to use the workplace. It should be the other way around. We should design the workplace so that an individual can work better. The tools that you use, the lighting that you have, right? Things like that. That's ergonomics. Human factors. The other one is psychosocial. Right? Not enough is given there. And this actually drives a lot of accidents. And it's not new. I'm not telling you something new. This is not rocket science, but it's being left. So it requires to be reinforced. And ISRS allows that, all right? And we use in that manner. And you put the correct kind of controls, like this onion over here, right? You have your basic design, designed correctly, then intervene correctly, and then put the systems that's correct in place, then active systems in place, then passive systems in place, and then if still something goes wrong, put the correct emergency response in place. This is real risk assessment and continuously being done. All right? And if you look at it in a bigger perspective, talking about control, monitoring, reporting, competence development, and emergency response, all right? Everybody knows this, the Swiss cheese model, right? Or what about this? The bow tie, right? It's all parts of the same animal. Identifying what is your top event, what is the threat, and put the controls in place. This is risk assessment, basically. And if we look at risk assessment, if you look at back into reverse, it's actually accident investigation from the other direction. But ultimately, the point is here is that these systems are in the industry, but it's not given enough attention, especially the people aspect, the human factors aspect. And you need to have that, all right? A good example is actually this project. All right, PTT. PTT is the national oil company of Thailand. All right, Thailand is a nation with a lot of rules and regulation, but not enough on safety. Right? They don't have any regulations there. In fact, the regulations and best practices that you see in PTT is taken from another country. Right? Mostly from America, OSHA, PSM 119.19 regulations, CFR, or the Surveyor regulations of Europe, or UK HSE. That's what they do. This company has 11 business units, from upstream, platforms, FPSOs, FSOs, right down to retail. If you've been to Thailand, if you've been to Bangkok, you've heard of Amazon Coffee? PTT owns Amazon Coffee, right? All the petrol stations has Amazon inside there. So they cover across many business units. Offshore is just one part. Onshore is a large number of their business. And one particular unit is the gas operations. Basically, they take the condensate from the platform in the fields, they bring it to onshore facility, they process it. Processing is very simple. Take out all the sand, take out all the nasty stuff like H2S and all the other chemicals, and pump it back into the grid for the power generation, right? Or storage. And they are looking at assessing their risk, right? What is missing? What can we do in the gas business? Because they don't have regulations. They have the management systems, but they want to do things themselves, right? And they're still missing out a lot of things. So what we did was we sat down together with them and did a workshop. Only the gas business. What is your problem? What are the things that what are the things that you are facing? What are the issues in terms of risk identification, risk management, emergency response, right? And after that, we developed a scope with them. And what we did is that they have identified 24 business locations. All right, you see this map of Thailand here. I know it's very small. But it's different locations across different businesses. Onshore, it's just one platform. Offshore, one platform. Onshore, gas storage, gas facilities, even petrol stations, CNG petrol station, right? And look at their business, only the gas side, all the issues and identifying the process safety and asset integrity status. Excuse me. All right, so what we did that, we took 10 months, 24 locations, very far, all over, drive around. It's also a project of mine. 10 months, using about 15 different resources across our Southeast Asia region. And we found a lot of findings. And most of it is related to ergonomics, psychosocial, and something new, asset integrity. Right? You build right, you put it right, but you need to maintain it right. And that's what's missing. Right? The human factors related to the control rooms, where they look at data, how people are tired. When people are tired, what happens? They make mistakes. Psychosocial, ergonomics. The wrong lighting was inside the control room. It's too bright or too dark. Right? In the operating plants, it's not enough lighting. In operating plants, the barriers are there, but it's so close to the unit every time the unit gets hit by a truck. Things like that. So we identify this and we share. We share across all 11 business areas with the CEO and the group VPs of every business unit. All right, and we present the findings. What does it do? They take these findings and bring it back to all the business units, and they use it in the interim, all right, and identify key hotspots for us to come back again to do the assessment so that they manage it. We don't come every time. It costs a lot of money. Getting a consultant to do things is expensive, yes? But the advantage is fast. You get fast results. You cannot, it's the pros and cons. How fast you need the information. So if you're willing to take the long term, get the consultant to come in to support, to provide the training, to teach your management. Most of you here are HSE personnel, yes? Right? I don't need to teach you safety. You can teach me safety. Right? We are all safety professionals. The problem is the management, getting them to understand the value of it. That's where we come in. A lot of times my presentation is actually catered for the management, understanding the risks of their lack of attention. So we use that to improve. Right?
오케이. 이번 세션에서는 역시나 이제 SMS의 중요성에 대해서 계속 얘기하면서 리스크 아이덴티피케이션에 대해서 좀 더 중요한 그런 얘기를 하고 있고요. 리스크 아이덴티피케이션에 대해서 개선한 그 사례를 좀 공유를 해주고 계십니다. 그래서 옵쇼어 쪽 얘기를 좀 해주셨는데요. 먼저 이제 옵쇼어 쪽에서 발생했던 메이저 액시던트 리스트들을 얘기를 해주셨고, 사실 대부분의 회사들은 SMS 시스템을 가지고 있는데 중요한 건 이제 얼마나 이 퀄리티가 좋은가라는 것이 중요하다는 말씀해 주셨습니다. 그래서 저희가 글로벌 수준의 HS 리퀘어먼트를 얘기할 때 실제 여기서 정의한 이런 SMS 안에 있는 항목들이 실제로 어떻게 효과적으로 조직에서 운영되고 있는지가 가장 중요하다는 말씀해 주셨고요. 그러기 위해서는 좋은 툴도 있어야 되고 좋은 방법들이 그 안에 녹아져 있어야 된다고 얘기를 해 주셨습니다. 지금 케이스로 소개해 주신 내용은 태국의 석유공사인 PTT가 이제 진행했던 그 프로젝트 사례를 소개를 해주셨습니다. PTT는 오샤랑 PSM 시스템을 운영하고 있던 조직이었고요. 굉장히 광범위한 그런 사업을 운영하고 있고 11개의 비즈니스 유닛을 가지고 있습니다. 그중에는 오프쇼어도 있고 온쇼어 가스도 있고 여러 가지가 있는데 이번에 프로젝트를 진행한 그런 사업 영역은 가스 비즈니스 영역이었고 기존에 있던 SMS를 어떻게 좀 더 업그레이드를 할 수 있을지를 진행했던 케이스였습니다. 그래서 첫 번째로 워크숍을 진행을 했고요. 그래서 우리가 현재 이런 시스템으로 운영을 하고 있고 뭐 전반적인 현황들을 이제 공유를 했고요. 그 현황 파악을 해서 이제 스코프를 정한 다음에 10달 동안 24개 사이트에 대해서 이제 ISRS나 PSM 이런 것들을 통해서 이제 그 현장 진단을 이제 진행을 했습니다. 그래서 가장 주요하게 이제 도출된 분야는 사업장 내에 얼고노믹스, 인간공학 관련된 그런 좀 개선 사항들이 필요한 부분이 굉장히 좀 많았었고, 아셋 인테그리티, 설비에 대해서 그런 부분들이 좀 보강할 부분들이 좀 많았고요. 그리고 인원 관리, 이제 뭐 들어오고 나가는 인원들을 어떻게 할 건지, 이제 연차가 오래된 그런 직원들의 스킬을 어떻게 좀 트랜스퍼할 건지 이런 등등의 사안들이 좀 주요하게 도출이 되었다고 합니다. 그래서 이 주요하게 도출된 내용을 아까 11개 비즈니스 유닛과 공유를 했고요. 가장 우선적으로 중요하다고 생각되는 항목들에 대해서 교육을 시작했다고 합니다. 교육을 진행할 때 가장 핵심을 뒀던 부분은 매니지먼트의 생각 변화입니다. 그래서 매니지먼트 쪽에 얼마나 HSE가 중요한지 강조하는 교육을 꽤 많이 했다고 합니다. 오케이.
Thank you. Now, we talk about risk assessment, we talk about management systems, right? We talk about control. What are controls? What's the best control? Well, there's not really best, right? But there are best practices behind it, all right? Adopting best practices behind your SMS is important, all right? Talking about the control measures, all right? This is how we would communicate our barriers, the control measures. There are 5 different kinds, right? The best passive hardware, you put it on there, you leave it be. It will run, right? Does it cover everything? Not really. It's mostly for emergency response. One good example, you can see the sign here. This is passive hardware. It's there. Doesn't need to do anything. You just make sure it's lighted up. There's a fire, people know you can run over there, right? Active hardware. That's nice. You design it. Automatically, there's a leak, you shut down, things like that. All right? Example like safety instrumented system. Or you hear the alarm and needs an operator to activate. All right? Or active human, somebody needs to look for it. I see smoke, that means there's fire. Then I turn the alarm. All right? Or continuous hardware. One good example is the corrosion protection system in asset integrity. So, but these are control measures, best practices. It depends on the activity and the assets. All right? But what does it mean in the big picture? So, this is an extremely good example of this. And it's another personal project of mine. All right? The customer is confidential because it's a big issue here, and they don't want to share throughout the world about this. But they are based in North America. They have a lot of, again, onshore and offshore facilities. They are for the power generation and what you call fuel and gas supply business. And they have a field in Indonesia, which they operate wholly on their own, not even with the local oil and gas companies, totally on their own. Then COVID happened. They had plans for this place. They built a platform to extract oil and mostly gas, a lot of condensate. Goes to a storage facility and goes into the pipeline and onshore facility, clean up, sell, end of story. Then COVID happened. What happens after COVID? Shuts down. So they mothballed the facility for 1 whole year. But the thing is this, in a lot of countries during COVID, there are essential services, which continues. Oil and gas is essential service. So they continue in the building, in the construction. And they call us in to do PSSR. PSSR is a common practice in oil and gas, onshore and offshore and chemical industries. Pre-startup safety review. All right. People think it's just another risk assessment. It's not. It's to look at all the activities that's being done and ask the question. Let's say in safety, do you have a management system? Yes, tick, done. Have you done risk assessment? Done. All right. Have you done the management of change? Yes, done. That's how a PSSR is done. It doesn't go inside the risk assessment, say whether quality of risk assessment or whatever it is. Just make sure that it is done, the identified actions in the risk assessment are put in place, done, that kind of thing. So what happened is that during the time of COVID, a lot of people are not working, they get paid. This guy working offshore, they are working, they get paid. They're not really happy, so they get lazy. So they do a lot of things which is not correct. They miss out a lot of things. All right? So we developed the site-specific checklist, because every site, different checklists. Chemical plant is different, offshore is different. I have a standard checklist for across a lot of industries, because I've done this for food industry, power generation, onshore oil and gas, offshore oil and gas. So it's different organizations, different requirements. So I developed one for them. Then conducted it for 2 wellhead platforms, 2 pipelines, 1 floating production unit. And we found a lot of issues. Issues, if they had started operation without PSSR, there will be a big boom. Then a major leak. Right? And this, what happened is that the findings make us stop the PSSR in between and call in the management of our client. This is the issue. You need to stop. Don't waste your time spending money on us to do PSSR. You need to go back to your management system. Look back at your controls. They are not according to best practice. One example is that they have a shutdown valve for a 16-inch valve. All right. So if there's an overpressure, the control system, active hardware, automatic system, is that if there's an overpressure, it will initiate and it will close remotely. Very good idea. Right? 16-inch valve. Right? So it should cut very fast. So when we test, the 16-inch valve takes 2 seconds for every inch to close. So 32 seconds and fully close. 32 seconds, a lot of things can happen. Right? So these are things we verify during PSSR. And they allowed such a system to be installed. And it's a major piece of equipment. You don't just call 7-Eleven, they will bring it there. You need to order. It takes a long time. And all these are missed out. Because what's the excuse they give? COVID. Having a pandemic doesn't mean you cannot do things unsafe. Must still do things safely. And this was missed out. So using the tool of PSSR, again, reinforced with ISRS, we were able to identify and catch it before it became a problem. If you look in the news from 2020 until today, and compared from 2020 back, the number of incidents has increased tremendously in terms of oil and gas, storage, chemical plants. Why? COVID. So they don't spend enough money on it. This became one of the statistics. I have been involved in several incident investigations since 2020 until now. I do an average of 3 major incidents every year. So this year, I've been a bit lucky, only 1. If you remember, on April Fool's Day in Kuala Lumpur, there was a big pipeline explosion, right? Jet fire into the sky, things like that. People thought it was April Fool's, right? But it's not. So we are investigating that. This is all related to COVID, right? Not managing your risk correctly and leaving things out over the long term. The idea is actually to save money, but the wrong way, and not managing it correctly.
Okay. 그 지금 이제 베스트 프랙티스 앤 베리어에 대해서 얘기를 해주고 계신데요. 그래서 이제 우리가 지금 SMS를 얘기하고 있고, SMS는 이제 베스트 프랙티스를 차용해서 디벨롭할 수 있지만 실질적으로 여러 가지 배리어들, 우리가 뭐 액티브 하드웨어든 패시브 하드웨어든 휴먼 소스든 이런 것들이 실질적으로 좀 세분화돼서 이제 녹여 들어 있어야 되는데, 이런 것들을 좀 개선한 케이스를 소개를 해주셨는데요. 고객 이름은 공개할 수 없고 이제 북미 지역에 있는 회사입니다. 파워 제너레이션이나 어떤 가스 서플라이 쪽에 운영을 하고 있는 회사고, 인도네시아에 사업장을 가지고 있었는데 이 사업장이 코로나 때 이제 스탑됐다가 다시 이제 리스타트를 해야 되는 그런 그 상황에 이제 놓여져 있었습니다. 그래서 이 조직은 PSSR을 가지고 있었고요. 프리스타트업 세이프티 리뷰 그 프로시저를 가지고 있었고, 다만 그 프로시저가 굉장히 심플 체크리스트로 구성된 거였습니다. 그래서 그 뒤에 얘기해 주신 걸 잠깐 앞으로 끌어오자면, 사실 이 프리스타트업이 제대로 리뷰되지 않으면 대형 사고로 이어질 수 있기 때문에 굉장히 좀 주의 깊게 봐야 되는 그런 단계라고 보여지는데, 참고로 자이날 씨는 매년 한 3건 정도의 중대 사고에 대한 사고 조사를 하고 있는데, 많은 것들이 이런 PSSR과 연관되어 있기도 하고요. 뭐 4월 1일에 말레이시아에서 굉장히 큰 파이프라인 쪽에서 폭발 사고가 일어나기도 했었고, 뭐 참고로 올해는 1건 정도만 지금까지 진행했다고 합니다. 그래서 그 PSSR을 통해서 SMS를 이제 리뷰하고 개정하는 그런 과정에서 예를 들면 뭐 16인치 밸브에 ESDB가 달려 있었는데, 실질적으로 이게 이머전시 때 바로 닫혀야 되는데 본이 1인치당 닫히는 시간이 2초 정도 걸려서 실제 이 16인치의 밸브가 닫히려면 32초가 걸리더라는 거예요. 근데 이것들이 그냥 문서상으로만 돼 있고, 이것들이 뭐 ESDB가 작동하느냐 이렇게 체크만 되지 실질적으로 그게 퀄리티 있게 작동하는지 체크하는 것들은 그 항목이 없었다는 거죠. 그래서 요 업데이트를 하는 그 프로젝트는요, 첫 번째는 사이트 스페시픽 체크리스트를 만들었고요. 그래서 사이트마다 PSSL을 해야 되는 중요 항목들이 다르기 때문에 그 체크리스트를 만드는 것이 첫 번째였고, 두 번째는 그 체크리스트를 가지고 진단을 했고요. 세 번째는 그래서 그 도출된 내용을 물론 PSSR에도 개정을 했지만 궁극적으로는 이것들이 다 SMS에 반영이 되어야 되는 내용들이 많았기 때문에 SMS 개정까지 갔던 부분이었습니다. 오케이?
Thank you. Almost over. All right. So the next is on regulations. All right. There's many out there. I'm just putting a few up here. All right. You have international standards. Right. IOGP is typical for gas or oil and gas operator. Is the minimum required. You got the IMO standards within the United Nations, right, for maritime standards, things like that. And then you have also local standards. In Asia, you have SKK Migas in Indonesia. You have NOPSEMA in Australia, which is very, very strong, very, very difficult to manage. But it's very, very focused on compliance and regulatory enforcement. The other is from Brunei. This is developed by us. We developed these regulations for Brunei, right? for onshore and offshore. It's the first regulations in the world that's both for onshore and offshore, for oil and gas, especially for the oil and gas business. But it's developed by DNV in Singapore in 2012, 2013, 2014. Another example is the typical one that you see out there. UK HSE, Cerveso Europe, all right, offshore Norge. I have to put that because we are a Norwegian company, and OSHA. But the first here and the last year is the typical used. Why I say this? Because this is a prescriptive regulation. It tells you how much, how high, how far. This is a non-prescriptive regulation. It's very risk-based. You know your risk. You should tell me how much. You manage it, you put in place. But both regulation works because this is very detailed, a lot of work to go through. And this is less detailed, but it allows you to manage it. The difference is this. Here, I follow this much. If something goes wrong, you tell me to follow this much. So it's very pro-industry. This is different. Because you're supposed to know your risk. You're supposed to manage your risk, right? If you didn't catch it, you didn't do your job. It's your fault, not our fault. So that's how it looks like in that perspective. But either way, it's there. These regulations, whatever it is there. And there are nations or regulators, countries which doesn't have this, or very limited. So what they're doing, they're catching up. All right, you have the coma that's coming up soon, right? They're catching up. Some, they don't need to catch up. Why? They follow the number one company that's doing it. I'm working a lot for the Middle Eastern countries. UAE, ADNOC. Qatar Gas. Saudi Arabia, Aramco. They are the number one operators, and everybody follow their requirements because they are a national oil company. As a company, they belong to the government. They make their regulations, and others follow regulations. However it is, what's important to emphasize is that it is a framework. It gives a guideline and manage occupational risk across all countries. You will see across all of this, there is a similarity. Either to one side, which is very American, or the other side is very British. But it's there. In Korea, it's very American. I notice it's very American. It is what it is. It's there. It's needed. But you must recognize whatever regulation is there, what guidelines are there, it is only guideline. Minimum that you need to do. Remember what I mentioned earlier in the risk assessment, in the management system, in the training, you need to do a bit more to prevent things from occurring. You do the minimum, you comply. Right? Remember the 8 aspects, second part is compliance. But compliance is never enough. You need to take one step further. You need to be proactive, not reactive. And that's where you come in.
Okay. We still remain in closing. Okay. 그 레귤레이션과 관련한 내용을 좀 말씀해 주셨는데요. 이렇게 IOGP나 뭐 여러 가지 오샤나 등등에서 국제적인 그런 레귤레이션들이 있고 로컬 지역에서 그런 레귤레이션들이 있는데 어떤 레귤레이션에서는 구체적으로 요구 사항을 이렇게 명시하는 부분도 있고 어떤 레귤레이션은 자발적으로 이렇게 진행을 유도하는 그런 차이들이 있습니다. 어쨌든 사고가 계속 발생하거나 어떤 글로벌 수준으로 임프루브가 필요한 부분이 이런 로컬 레귤레이션을 다 만족한더라도 그런 상황들이 발생할 수 있는데요. 예를 들면 미들이스트 같은 경우는 뭐 사우디나 UAE나 카타르나 굉장히 타이트한 그런 리퀘어먼트들이 있지만 이것들은 실질적으로 어떤 사업장의 운영의 입장에서 본다면 가이드라인에 불과하고 실제로 어떤 사업장을 실질적으로 효과적으로 운영하기 위해서 또는 여러 나라의 사업장을 운영할 때 일관성이나 지속 가능성을 유지하기 위해서는 지금 저희가 쭉 보아온 여러 케이스들과 같은 그런 우리만의 글로벌 수준의 리퀘어먼트 개발이 필요하다 이런 맥락으로 이해하면 될 것 같습니다. 오케이.
All right, so in closing, when you look at, again, I use oil and gas as an example, but it's the same across organization. Management systems are enablers for 3 parts of an organization's operation, sustainable operations. All right? Number one is actually making people resilient. Resilient to change, resilient to actions which affects their safety and health. All right? On top of that, it also makes it sustainable. It's not good enough, I do this and that's done. You will notice in your experience as safety professionals, there's something happens, they go up, everybody's doing this, then suddenly, it dies down. Then something happens, then go up again. Then it dies down. It needs to go up and maintain, all right? And when you do that, it's sustainable. So resilient people, sustainable organization, and strategic in thinking. So to keep it up there, you need to think strategy moving forward. All right? It builds actually a risk-competent organization. Another way to explain this, all right? Where does SMS benefit as an organization? All right? A strong SMS. Number one, to reduce accident, injuries, all right? The standard stuff. On top of that, it requires enhancing stakeholder engagement. It's not just the safety guys. All right? It's always the safety guys. No, it's not. It's everyone. From management down to the guys on the ground. We are one step at the side as a safety guy. On top of that, there are other stakeholders, the public, the regulators, all right? The landowners, depending on where you are. So all this must work together. And SMS supports that. And if you have nice control, you also improve your employee morale. A happy employee is a safe employee. It's like when I say to people, happy wife, happy life. Yes? Same thing. All right? So that's the kind of logic you need to think about. And then on top of that, remember at the end of the day, it supports continuity. It supports the business. A safe business is a business which has good relations with the public. Somebody you can say, I can support this organization. I have a very good example. You all remember the accident regarding the Malaysian Airlines. One was shot down over Ukraine, and the other one disappeared, right? Malaysia Airlines had poor business continuity management process in place. The passengers and the crew family found out about this incident from the news, not from the airlines itself. So they were very unhappy. Right? Everybody knew before I knew that my child is gone, my family is gone. All right? At that same period, you remember there was an Air Asia aircraft that was flying out of Jakarta, which crashed because of the Boeing 747 issue, the new Boeing issue, right? You know what the CEO of Air Asia did? The moment he found out, he sent out one person for every single individual on that plane, from pilot to crew to passenger, and bring them to a safe place and tell them this has happened. Tell everything. Cover all the costs. Make sure all the insurance is pushed out. Does everything. Before the public knew, they knew. This is proper stakeholder management. And because of that, they have really good impression of Air Asia. They have a better impression of a budget airlines as opposed to a national carrier within Malaysia itself. Simple things, eh? So this is part of that. But ultimately, putting safety in the strategy, because of resilience comes some responsibility and connection to stakeholder. You will change from an organization which is focused on compliance, an organization that avoids risk, an organization which is reactive, wait for something to go wrong, then do something, to an organization which has a culture, safety culture, culture to do the right thing. The sign of an organization does well is that when your people does the right thing when nobody's looking. That's culture. Value creation instead of risk avoidance. And ultimately, proactive. Before something goes wrong, it is caught. Not by you, the safety guys, but the people who are doing the work, by the stakeholders who are engaged, communicated, trained, notified. When I started in ExxonMobil, I did a lot of safety as a safety advisor. One of the things I had to do was manage contractor. And one of the contractors that I had was the worst performing contractor in our history. 50 contractors, they're the worst, number 50. So many incidents. So I was thrown into that organization for 5 years to change. 5 years, huh? That means it's not overnight success, it takes time. When I did a workshop with them, of the management and the supervisors of the organization, I draw a line. Those who believe accidents can be prevented, stand over here. Those who believe it cannot be prevented, stand over there. The only guys are standing there, the safety guys. Everybody is over there, including CEO. Now the CEO, before he puts a picture on the wall, he will wear his safety glasses, earplugs, gloves, proper connection, then he drills. The CEO, it takes time to communicate this, but when we put it in place, put it in practice, it is a lasting effect.
오케이. 네, 그래서 지금까지 말씀드렸던 이런 좋은 굿 프랙티스 또는 굉장히 스페시픽한 배리어를 가진 이런 글로벌 수준의 HS 리퀘어먼트를 통해서 우리가 뭘 할 수 있냐. 일단 사업을 영위하는 목적에서 보자면 인적 자원을 굉장히 그 퀄리티 있는 인적 자원을 유지함으로써 지속 가능한 사업을 하고 또 우리 사업이 계획한 전략을 실행하는 데에 효과적인 그런 절차를 진행할 수 있다라고 말씀을 해주셨고요. 실제 운영과 관련해서는 일단 안전한 사업장 또 사고가 안 나는 사업장을 통해서 근로자들 또 이해관계자들이 굉장히 해피한 그런 결과를 실제로 만들어낼 수 있고 더불어서 레퓨테이션과 관련돼서도 평판과 관련해서도 실제로 좋은 그런 우리가 이렇게 추상적으로 보이는 것들을 실제 이런 글로벌 수준의 HS 리퀘어먼트를 통해서 하나씩 만들어갈 수 있다라는 그런 맥락으로 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 마지막으로는 저희가 항상 그렇게 강조하는 기업의 문화 또한 이런 글로벌 수준의 HS 리퀘어먼트 통해서 이제 달성할 수 있고 사고를 예방하거나 자발적으로 좀 더 자발적인 그런 액티비티를 만들어내는데 기여할 수 있다라고 말씀해 주셨습니다. 그래서 본인이 처음에 이제 엑소모빌에서 일을 하실 때 50개의 굉장히 사고가 많은 협력업체를 개선하기 위해서 5년 동안 굉장히 많은 그런 일들을 했고 CEO를 통한 그런 CEO나 다른 매니지먼트를 통한 이런 그런 인식의 개선 또 조직들의 인식의 개선을 이끌어내기 위해서 지금 보여드린 이런 글로벌 수준의 HS 리퀘어먼트에서 얘기하고 있는 것들을 실제 실행하기 위해서 협력업체 실행하기 위해서 많은 노력을 했고 꽤 성과가 있었다라는 말로 이제 마무리를 해주셨습니다. Okay.
So there are some reference projects here. I'm not going to explain it. It can be easily read. You can have it. You have it in your notes, right? If you have any questions, my colleagues here can answer. And if you really need my answer, you can always contact me through them. All right? Thank you very much.